Hello and welcome to attempting to start a vegetable garden in my apartment. Today, we have some seeds that I found in a bucket at my house that we already had. These ones expired in 2016, as did the nasturtiums. I don't remember what year I went to the Maker Faire, but that's where I got the purple plum radish. These expired in 2010, that expired in 2012, and this one supposedly expired in 2006. So, we'll see how these go. I also forgot to mention my absolute favorite of all of these seeds, which is the Altoids container of mystery beans. For the sake of controlling for variables, I'm just going to start working with peas and the mystery beans. My other supplies include some plastic containers, which are also lying around at my house for putting things into. A Ziploc bag, which up until recently held some chocolate chip cookies, but I washed it out. Potting soil. Stuff to label my seeds with, because good science is good records. That's also what the notebook is for. And some sugar, hydrogen peroxide, and coconut water. That will make sense as I go. Alrighty. So, I have here 5 treatments that I'm going to put these peas into. 5 different conditions. First one is soil and water to see if I'm overcomplicating this. There's almost no treatments to that. It's just literally putting them in soil and water. The second one is hummingbird, which is putting them into a sugar water solution with some coconut. Third treatment is spa day, which is treating them with hydrogen peroxide and then putting them in the sugar water. Fourth treatment is nutcracker. I'm going to do some chemical or physical scarification in addition to the chemical scarification that the hydrogen peroxide will provide us. And then the fifth condition is greenhouse, which is me putting them into a Ziploc bag with a paper towel and seeing if they successfully germinate. That's in addition to the spa day treatment. I'm giving them all that. Full disclosure, in case this wasn't obvious, I have no idea what I'm doing. Take everything I say here with a grain of salt, because I'm basing all of my process here on some Googling that I did yesterday, and largely off of one article from Garden Culture magazine, which had some really helpful stuff, and you should go give that a read, because they have way more idea what they're doing than I do. But yeah, just be aware that I am very new to this, and I'm just sharing the process of me attempting to figure it out with you. So let's have some fun together. Okay, first condition, soil and water. I could count these and be super precise about it, but a bunch of them won't germinate no matter what I do, so we're just going to be imprecise. I'm going to put 2 of these in each of these, and then we will see if they germinate. I can count. Yeah, and I'll bury them, put water over them, and that one's done. Second, we will be doing the hummingbird treatment, and this is when we start to get to do some fun chemistry. So here I have some water that I grabbed from my Vertifilter. I warmed it up ever so slightly in the microwave, like 40 seconds or so. Not hot, just a little bit warm, because that'll make it easier to dissolve the sugar. Now, none of the sources I looked at really had ratios for this. There was one that said a teaspoon for a cup of water, so that's what I'm gonna go with. But this is complete guesswork. Basically, I just want a little bit of sugar in the water to replace some of the carbohydrates that have been digested by the seeds because they've been just dried out for so long. But we don't want so much that it becomes hypertonic to the seeds themselves, otherwise it would draw water out of them rather than putting water in. Next, we're going to be adding some coconut water. Now, it doesn't have to be coconut water. The source I was looking at said you can use kelp, alfalfa, malted grain, a couple of other things. But I specifically wanted to use coconut water because I knew how to find it in the store. I specifically looked for one for which the only ingredient was coconut water. A lot of them had citric acid in them. So I just went for the one that had only coconut water, just in case that was going to be a confound to my ability to use it. Now, the reason we're adding coconut water, and I have no ratios to go on here, so we're just going to do a tablespoon or 2. The reason I'm using coconut water is because it has enzymes in it which stimulate plant growth. And enzymes are just molecules that facilitate reactions that were already happening to make them faster and take less energy. So 2 tablespoons of coconut water. Also, just to satisfy my curiosity. have left to do is soak the seeds overnight, and then in the morning I will plant them in this little planter here. I'm putting, I think, 18 seeds in here. Just, you know, to have about 3 per. I might go back and replant one in each of the soil and water condition just to have equal amounts in each. Now, for our other 3 treatments, I'm going to be sanitizing the seeds with hydrogen peroxide. This is just to remove any bacterial or fungal spores that are on the exterior of the seeds that have gotten there in the time that they've been sitting here. This particular hydrogen peroxide is at 3% concentration. Now, every single source I looked at varied wildly in the amount of dilution and the amount of time you were supposed to expose the seeds to hydrogen peroxide for. So I'm just going to split the difference. They said between like 1 and 5%, this is a 3% solution, and between a few minutes and half an hour. So I'm going to do probably 15 minutes of soaking in just straight out of the bottle hydrogen peroxide. This might be a terrible idea. This could be too high of a concentration or too long, but you know what? All I lose if I'm wrong is a couple of peas that I already had for this purpose. I can ever so slightly hear the peas like hissing. It sounds like when you try and open a soda bottle, or not like either a soda bottle or a soda can, you've just barely opened it, there's a little bit of that carbon dioxide hissing out. That's what this sounds like right now, but very, very quiet. Okay, it has been 15 minutes, and now it is time to rinse off the hydrogen peroxide. Now, I just figured I can use this as a strainer because these holes are slightly smaller than the peas. I just poked holes in a can with a screwdriver because I'm going to use this as a plant pot at some point, but it works fine as a strainer. So, I'm just going to take this to the sink, rinse it out a couple of times, and then the peas will be... Ooh. Alright, that might have been too high of a concentration, but you know what? We're learning. And that is ultimately the point. So I'm going to rinse these off, and then I'll resume. Alrighty, so this is where the treatments start to diverge again. That should be good. So on the left here, we'll have the nutcracker condition where I'll do a little bit of physical scarification, probably with scissors or something. I just want to break the seed coat mechanically in case the hydrogen peroxide didn't break it fully. These two, I'm not going to do that to because I just want to test and see the regular. Can I soak these overnight in our sugar solution and then plant them? And then for greenhouse, we're going to put them in the plastic bag. So they'll have another step, but at this point, it doesn't matter if they're all mixed together overnight for soaking in the sugar solution purposes. Okay, so hopefully this can provide a good illustration of what I mean by physical scarification. So you see how right there the seed coat is just a little chipped away? I want to do something between that and removing the entire seed coat. I don't need to remove the entire seed coat on all of them, I just want to get them a little bit scratched up. But as you can see on some of these, getting off the seed coat actually seems to make more sense because it's just falling off anyway. But this thing here, this is the seed coat. This is the thing that I'm worried is too hard for the seed to get out of on its own, which is why I'm doing this extra step in the nutcracker condition. Wow, that is both labor-intensive and very messy, but I believe I figured out the best way to do it after several seeds. So I take the scissors to one of the ridges on the seed, and I just cut that rather than putting the whole thing between the blades. It's okay if a little bit of the endosperm gets cut off, that's the squishy stuff inside the seed, but this is just to sort of break open the edges. And actually I don't cut a lot of the endosperm doing this, surprisingly enough. It just sort of whittles it away on the edges. You can see that. Now, a couple of the seeds I noticed were actually soft and squishy, and you could just pull them out. I think this is what's supposed to happen when they're not all dehydrated. And this one I just chopped in half by accident. Whoops! You know, part of me really hopes that the nutcracker condition is not the condition which is the most effective at germinating, because that would be really labor intensive to have to do on the whole tin of mystery beans. But if it's what's needed, it's what's needed. So now, all I have left to do is soak both conditions, this is the nutcracker condition, in our lovely sugar water, coconut water mix overnight. And so tomorrow, I will transplant these two into their seed pots and the greenhouse into its plastic bag. So that is everything I have to do today. Except clean up. It is the following day and our peas are ready for transplanting. So here we have the greenhouse and spa day condition. Water has been absorbed and the water level has somewhat dropped because it's now inside of the peas. You can see they've rehydrated quite a bit. I noticed over the course of that last evening that the nutcracker condition expanded significantly faster, and you actually see several of them are splitting open now the way they will as they germinate. So I'm hopeful that's not just from them hydrating, that is them actually going to germinate, but I don't know at this point. And then finally we have the hummingbird condition, which I did not sanitize, so we will see how this one goes. Alright, hummingbird condition first. I'm gonna drain it off. And I definitely don't want to save this water because this is the one that's most likely to contain contaminants like bacteria and fungi. So I just want the peas out of that one. I considered saving the other two, the sugar water from the other two, to reuse for when we do the beans, which I may or may not have done a little secret test of, but I'll get to that in a minute. But I decided that it's essentially the same thing as agar, which is the sugar-dense gel that they put in Petri dishes, and just leaving sugar water lying out all night with an open top container, that's a recipe for like just attracting all the things that I don't want on my seeds, so I'm not going to be reusing any of the liquid. Okay, so I've got 3 peas planted per container. Now, if you look at the packaging on the peas, it actually recommends spacing them 2 inches to 2 to 3 inches apart. However, because I expect these to have a low germination rate due to being so old, I'm going to sort of group them up a little too close, and then I'll be ready to transplant them to be further apart from each other once I take them out of their little seed pots, if they do germinate. Cover them up, lads. Lather. Rinse. Repeat. No. Fungus gnat. No, these are mine. Stay away. Stay away! Okay, I need to actually set out some apple cider vinegar for these guys because it's becoming a bit of a problem. Stop! Okay, so it's time to split our conditions again. This is both spa day and greenhouse, and this is going to make a mess if I don't have 2 hands, so excuse me for a moment. There we go. We want to keep... Let's just close that. to separate these out into the two conditions. I think that's all of them. And then I will put half of them in Ziploc bag and half of them into soil. Okay, so I've got the spa day peas all in their container, and I'm going to just use regular tap water to dampen the paper towel for the greenhouse condition. I considered using either the coconut sugar water or water that I'd left out so that some of the chlorine had evaporated, but I ended up deciding I want to just straight out of the tap water because I want a little bit of chlorine and chloramine to fight bacteria and fungi, because from what I have heard, this is a bad idea. This is the most likely one to get infected because it's essentially a petri dish. So I'm trying to minimize the chances of that happening by using the chlorinated water. Here we go. Damp but not soaking. No. Perfect. There's like one or two little dry corners left still on here. I got that in here. And then all I have to do is gently set the peas on top of the paper towel. You cannot see that. There we go. Do you remember in the beginning when I said I wasn't going to count out the peas? I'm not very good at holding myself back from counting things out, so this is what we have now. This also will make it slightly more experimentally sound because we have the same number of peas in every single one of these except for my first condition, which was the soil and water conditions. This one has 2 per, whereas all the others have 3 per. But you know what? I'm not even sure this one is going to sprout at all. This is a confound, though. I have to keep this in mind. If this doesn't sprout, I have to keep in mind that it has fewer opportunities to do so. Bonus content, I decided to put a couple of the mystery beans into the sugar water solution last night just to see how they reacted to it, and it looks like they're pretty happy with it. I subjected half of them to the nutcracker condition, this one, that one, and this one, and then the other half are just spa day treatment, which is those 3. So far as I can tell, there are 3 varieties of beans in the mystery box, and so I chose 2 from each, and then obviously I used the nutcracker condition on 1 of each of the species. So I'm also going to plant these in a bean can, because I think that'd be entertaining, even though I'm 90% sure that none of these are black beans. Beans in the bean can. Bury the beans. Good grief. Who's been gardening in my sink? What hooligan? Now, I'm actually left with still way too many peas. Because I limited it to planting 3 per container, I have a lot of leftovers. These are the nutcracker or the shelled peas, and then these are the regular ones. I'm just going to go ahead and combine them. You can see the difference there, the split ones and the not so split ones. And then I'm going to plant them in this cascade container because I don't want these to go to waste. And if there's any chance of any of them germinating, I want to give them that chance. So I'm just going to do a less than scientific planting in here, even though it smells a little bit like dishwasher detergent still. Not sure if that's food safe, but we'll give it a try. At least it's not a root vegetable. Ah, shoot, I forgot to poke drainage holes. Hang on. I should clarify, this thing also still smells like dishwasher detergent after I washed it twice, so there's that. Do I have a tray that fits nicely underneath this to catch water? No. Is this too important of a step to miss anyway? Yes. So, here we go. Whoop. I guess that counts as a drainage hole. You know what? I'm just going to leave it at that. That's plenty. Maybe I'll poke one more hole in the corner. One more hole in each of the corners. But that's probably sufficient. Okay, so pro tip when reusing old plastic containers. Keep in mind the structural integrity of stabbing it right in the middle. Whoops. Okay, now we can make a mess, and the mess will drain out the bottom. That's the goal here, to make as much of a mess as possible. Ah, the beauties of gardening. Okay, this one's gonna be overcrowded to the point of absurdity, but you know what? We're literally just seeing if these will have any chance of germinating at all. I expect a low, probably, if I were to guesstimate, 20% germination rate. So imagine 20% of these turn into actual plants. And then I can transplant those plants if needed, or I might just leave them in here. But the unsprouted peas may become a risk for root rot, so I could still transplant them. But we're just going to give them a fighting chance at sprouting. And then we just give them some water. And soak it fairly thoroughly, because I like to soak and then let it dry out fully rather than water mildly. And we have drainage holes in this thing now, so I can actually get away with doing this. We'll see. As you can see, none of it's drained out the bottom yet, so probably put a little more water in there. There we go. Now it's dripping out the bottom. So the soil is soaked through and it's not going to wick all of the water that I put on the top into the base. This is definitely too much soil, but I'm hopeful that I can reuse this later. Does it fit in this? It kind of fits in this. I mean, not really, but it's better than nothing, so we're going to do that. And there we have it. Now all I have left to do is watch, wait, and wish that these will germinate. I'll obviously be able to see these first if they germinate, and that could give me an indication as to whether these are germinating under the soil where I can't see them. So I'm very hopeful that I'll be able to see something change here in the next couple of days. But that is everything I get to do with them today. I have nothing else that I can really enact on my part in order to support them. So I am all done. Except for cleaning. It is now the afternoon of day 3 of the germination project. Day 1 is when we planted the soil in water condition and got the others soaking. Day 2 is when I got almost everything else planted to save for the greenhouse condition. And now, day 3, the greenhouse condition has some little itty-bitty sprouts. So, that tells me that at least some of these have a chance of sprouting, which is really nice to know since they're all 4 years past their date on their package. So, we have a chance. This is very good. We also have a little bit of wicking action going on these labels since they're paper and not wax coated. Okay, we are now at 36 hours since I put the greenhouse condition into its little greenhouse, and can I just say, wow, this is a way higher germination rate than I expected. Like I mentioned before, I expected around 20% germination, but as of right now, I have nearly 90% germination. Only 2 of the 18 seeds have shown no sign of germination, with most of them looking something like this. So I'm probably going to plant these tomorrow unless I decide to just let them stay in the greenhouse and continue to grow there, but I don't want them to be too limited in space either. So I'm going to give them a little extra water and then put them back in here until at least tomorrow morning. But I'm so excited. This is so much better than I expected.